So now we present KJ Sreeram. He is a very distinguished scientist and fellow of Royal Society of Chemistry and involved in government shaping policy. And he will talk about a very important concept called friendship between the math science and CLRI. So now he will speak on it.
First of all, thank you to the director and the team for having me here. The moment I got this invite from the institute, I was only reminded about my BTech, MTech days. So before I do that, let me introduce myself a little bit. I actually belong to Kerala. I did my +2, up to +2 there. At that point of time, there was an option that you can choose a BTech program elsewhere in the country, which is not offered in your state. So I went to Trivandrum to choose a course. I was to go to Chennai for a leather technology program, or to Maharashtra for a textile printing somewhere, or to the Gandhigram. So the only thing which at that point of time, I thought was that, okay, let me go to Chennai because overnight I can come home. So I landed up for my BTech in Anna University and was privileged enough to do a master's after my BTech, thanks to the mentorship of Dr. T. Ramasamy, who was then at that time the senior most person in the institute after the director. So when I entered the institution, that was the time in which, just after my BTech, Dr. Ramasamy was to get his Bhatnagar Award. And on the same year was the Institute of Mathematical Sciences also getting a Bhatnagar Award. And it so happened that the two people who got Bhatnagar the same year from Chennai, we did the celebration at the Triple Helix Auditorium of CLRI for the entire Chennai city. So that's the first time that I recognized that there was an institution here who was working in the area of mathematical sciences, but it so happened that there was a lot of interaction at that point of time, may not be on commonalities of science, but more on the science of the country. And as students who were always, part and parcel of the system, of course, when you work as a student with a person like Dr. Ramasamy, the problem is your class, your lab, everything is his office. So you are practically in his office all the time, so all the visitors are known to you also. So I ended up like that, and at that point of time, started getting a good idea of what was happening here in this institute, and thus the learning. One good thing which people like me imbibed at that point of time was the fact that the institutions were so very well networked that there was tremendous flow of ideas, tremendous flow of even chemicals, I would say, between one place to the other. When I was doing my PhD, there was no day in which we ever struggled for a chemical. Essentially because if I did not have it in CLRI, the channels were open. We would talk to somebody in the University of Madras, somebody in the Anna University. By evening, the chemical would be there with us. So there was a freedom, the freedom of interacting, collaborating, working together, knowing each other at the level of the student itself. Today, sitting as a director of CLRI, I would say that we have today become more protocolish, that you expect the supervisor to write, the director to forward the letter to the next institution to get a piece of work done in that organization. But that was not so in those days. We were known to each other. I must say that we knew every single student who was a part of the chemistry department of University of Madras, or every single student who was a part of the biochemistry department of the University of Madras. That was the kind of knowledge that we had. And as we progressed, I don't know why we left it out in between, we also had this science club meeting, which was there. All these institutions, colleges, schools would come together. One Saturday it would be here, one Saturday in this very auditorium. I have come once. we used to have this interactions, very informal level discussions. It so happened that whether it is your subject or not, you will come and sit and listen to it and maybe pick up some ideas out of it. So that, to me, maybe we can blame it on the COVID, but that to me today is missing. I strongly feel that in recent times, we don't seem to be knowing each other to the extent that we were knowing in the past. Friends, let me tell you why I came here all of a sudden again. It's not just because of the invitation. There are reasons for me to be here, but since it's a diverse crowd, let me first introduce to you my institution, the Central Leather Research Institute. The Central Leather Research Institute was conceived in 1945 itself, essentially from a thought of Mahatma Gandhi in 1934, where he said that the hides and skins are getting exported from this country and we are importing footwear for us. And he wanted the intelligentsia of this country to make footwear herself. And even before this institute came in, history says that there was a fight between Bengal and Tamil Nadu as to where the Central Leather Research Institute should be housed. And at that point of time, then Vice Chancellor of the University of Madras convinced his twin brother, who was the Minister of Commerce in Delhi, that please bring this institute to Chennai, and we will ensure that the land, the building, etc. is available to them. So within no time of independence, we had this institute conceived and set up. For 2 or 3 years, we worked from a place called Coral Merchant Street, which was the industry hub at that time. When I say industry, it's a trader of hides and skins. At that point of time, the country was exporting raw hides and skins to the tune of 30 lakh rupees. This institute came up in 1948. We got people trained abroad on how to make good quality leather. A director was identified, a future director was identified, let me put it in that way. One couple of people took over as the interim directors. Dr. Naidoma was identified as the future director of this institute and sent for training. He was a chemical engineer by profession. He wanted to study law, ended up going to the UK to study leather technology, come back to CLRI and guide this institution forward. Now, starting from that time onwards, the institute learned and taught at the same time. So 1948, we taught them how to make leather. 1970s, we taught them how to make finished leather, which is more attractive. And by the 80s, we got the first CAD-CAM in the country to teach the footwear industry how to cut patterns using a computer. And we then migrated into footwear, leather apparels, leather products, etc. In between, we also struggled with the environment. The industry was considered a very, very unclean, unprofessional, and we built it up. But in this whole process, what possibly we would not conceive today was conceived in 45-48 period. That a central government agency under the CSIR banner would become a part of a state university. 1948, when this institute came in, we were to become the Department of Leather Technology of the University of Madras. And the director of the Central Leather Research Institute was to become the HOD, a head of department of a state university, reporting to the dean or vice chancellor or somebody much, much lower in his rank also. University would select the students for the BTech program, give them the fundamental engineering courses, and sent them to CLRI to learn leather. And because of that, we continue that whole thing today, except that University of Madras has become a university. We do a BTech, MTech, PhD program with the university. We just do research, no hassles on ensuring that the curriculum is there, NIRF ranking, that ranking, everything university's problem, not our problem. All that we need to do is teach, spend some time teaching, that's it. In the process, we also had the manpower to teach the recent technologies that we were developing. So most of the UG projects or PG projects that we give were actually the research problems that we were looking at. So the moment these people enter the industry, they were implementing our technologies. Today, we can proudly say that 60% of the global leather industry is manned by somebody who has had a learning in CLRI. Either it could be a diploma program, a BTech program, a PG program, anything. But 60% of the world's leather working group, I may put it, actually is from CLRI. The success of that was that a guy came from Ethiopia for a 1-year program in CLRI. He did a PG diploma in CLRI. He went back to Ethiopia, grew up the ladder of an institution which was like a just name for name existing, the Leather Industry Development Institute of Ethiopia. He became the Director General something like 5 years after he left us. But the first thing that he did after becoming the DG of that institution in Ethiopia was to come back and call CLRI to come to Ethiopia. He convinced the government there to seek a World Bank loan and some funding from the United Nations, etc. and invite CLRI for a program which he called the twinning program. And he had only one objective: mirror CLRI in Ethiopia. In the process, we went to Ethiopia also. So we learnt there how the Africans made leathers, but also earned a lot of money. The institute, out of the Ethiopian program, had earned close to about 25 crores. So this was a money earning activity for us in the 90s to 2000 plus period. But another way of looking at this institute was also that since there was no other institute for leather in the country, automatically we became part of the policy. Of course, it is said that the second director of CLRI, who was a gigantic figure not only by his height, but in terms of his activities, Dr. Naidamma was the part of the kitchen cabinet of Indira Gandhi and so on. But what we did was that we became the part of the policy making of the government of India. Even today, we continue to be a part of the policy making of the government of India. So if anything that the government of India implements for the leather related industries, we are involved in it. So by 1970s, when the institute had taught the industry how to make finished leather, we found that the industry is not taking it up much. They still were continuing to export the raw hides and skins and all that. And we thought something has to be done with these people. So we intervened with the government, and in 1973, there was a Siddharamaiah committee which said that here and after you cannot export anything other than finished leather from this country. The committee was actually full of CLRI people only, so it was done. But what we did in that whole process was that a few lakh earnings got converted into billions of earnings for this industry. Today, this particular industry exports $6 billion worth of leather and leather products. The total domestic plus international contribution of this industry runs to about $15 billion. And this has been possible predominantly because there was a technology available, and the technology had come from the Central Leather Research Institute. So what I am trying to convey here is that it is something where an institution looks at developing its science and technology predominantly based on I would say a conceived industrial need. I will not say that even today, if I call my leather industry and ask them, can you suggest me some projects to do for the next 5 years, they will take next 5 minutes what I should do. They are very, they are only looking at today's problems rather than a long-term program. So we have to create a problem for them, solve the problem and then say that, look, we have provided you the solution. So right from targeting the problem, what would come in the future onwards is our job. They don't do anything. So this is even today the status quo of this industry. So what is happening with respect to us was also the requirement of agility. By 90s, the environment had become a major concern. The pollution from the leather industry had also become heavy. We started blaming everything that happened with respect to Ganga, Palar, everything was because of the leather industry. Even today people blame that way. While Ganga is not polluted because of leather industry, it's polluted because of several other things, but even today we take the blame of it. That's another part of the story. But 96, this particular state, Tamil Nadu had at that point of time close to 780 formal leather industries. We were the highest earning for the entire leather sector. 96, the Supreme Court closed 80% of that industry in one single order. They said closed forever. But thankfully, that was a time when this institute joined hands with the NEERI, the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute, yet another CSIR laboratory in Nagpur. And we told the court that in 18 months' time, we will give you a solution for cleaning up this industry. The institute was able to put its manpower, station them in the industry itself. Like a schoolmaster going and teaching the child, we were sitting with these guys there in the industry and telling them this is what you should do and what you should not do. In the process, in 18 months' time, we restored this entire industry back. And that led to restoring close to about 1 million jobs in Tamil Nadu. This industry in particular, now it is slightly different. In the past, how it used to operate was that if there is let me take a classical example of a place, Ambur in Tamil Nadu. What used to happen is that the villages around the company is like adopted villages of the company. The company would go and drop the sole, the upper material, etc. In a plastic bag in the houses and tell them to stitch it. The women folks, predominantly the Muslim women who will not generally go out of their house, they will take all these material and start stitching by hand or they were also provided, some of them were provided the tailoring, the stitching machines, and they used to do it in their house. Next day morning, this would be picked up, the payment for it would be given, and the next batch would be put. So the women were having the money directly in their hand. And this ensured that they spend it on their children's education. The companies also set up hospitals, schools, etc. to ensure that this worker folks were always with them. And it is actually said by these companies that there was a pollution coming from the industry was never complained by the people around them, but by people from outside. Because these people were very happy with the company because that was their earning route. Today, as of the latest statistics, this industry in India employs about 4 million people, of which 60% are women. And in the footwear industry, 90% are women. So that is the structure of this industry, which means that when the government looks at it in whichever way, either as an export income earner or as a employment generator, the government can never miss this industry. So there is a positioning of this industry in such a way that government cannot say that close down the leather sector. So this is a kind of mechanism by which this is all put up. But What was needed for CLRI was that we had to constantly work with this industry to keep improving the leather and leather products that they were making. This is a consumer product, a fashion product, selling to the Europe, where the colors, the designs keep changing every 6 months. We had to work with certain organizations elsewhere in the world to predict what color would be in fashion 18 months from now. In the 1980s to 90s, we never had the option of knowing what colors we should make the leather also. Predominantly, we used to make it all in brown, all in black, because that was the only two colors the leather industry knew. But today, we make all kinds of pastel shades, which are the most running fashion elements of the world. And within 5 years from 1990, India became what happens in a place called, a body called Modurop, which is an accumulation of the designers and fashion experts of the world, is that every country would bring lot of leathers with various colors there. They will put it on a table. I don't know how they select it. Even today I say that it is like inky, pinky, ponky only for me. But anyway, they decide 25 colors and say this is the fashion for the next 18 months, after 18 months. Either they would flood the market with those colors alone so that you have to buy from that is your problem, or they have some mechanism to say that this is fashion. I don't go depth of it. But within 5 years of starting to participate in the Modurop, India started getting 15 to 18 colors out of 25 as the ones which will be in vogue, which means 18 months of preparedness was available with the leather industry to flood the European market with colors of choice of the people. And this is what we were doing. Now so we entered into the fashion market, but what we also found that when we enter into the fashion market, just not the colors is just not important. What is also getting important at that point of time was that you have to give comfort to the wearer. Somebody buys an Indian footwear and says, look, this is not fitting my requirement. It becomes a challenge. So we had to understand what was fitting. Now, the old model of measuring your foot size was a scale and pencil model. You ask the person to stand on a piece of white paper, you draw the contour of his leg and then measure the length, measure the width and say that this is the size, your foot size. 90s, 2000, this was okay. But we found that we were lagging behind. The Western world had started working with mathematicians, computational experts, etc., and had come with two-dimensional scanners, wherein with the ability of laser-based light systems which would map the contour of your leg, they were able to start giving you the sizing instead of the pen and paper model. Today, that has become a three-dimensional scanning model, where the best of the scanners that are sold by the Italians not just measures the length and breadth of your feet, it also measures how wide your feet is, how high your this thing is, how much your toe is projecting, etc., etc. Around 2000, we thankfully got a support from the United Nations to learn this whole technique. We created the people. For the first time, CLRI hired a biomechanics person. We also interacted with the Indian Institute of Science to understand biomechanics. They did not understand feet. We did not understand what is biomechanics, but we could couple it together and start understanding what happens to your feet when you are walking. So as you walk, there are changing patterns. Your pressure points are different, and we started learning that. Now with the machines in hand, we could understand what was happening to your feet when you are moving around. For the first time in that range, we said that, look, there is going to be a problem with respect to the Indians. Our children of the age group of less than 5 are wearing plastic shoes. We are putting a plastic shoe into their leg, the ones, that pee sound coming ones. We were putting those shoes in their legs, and those shoes were not allowing the growth of the feet. Now, a person born in the 60s or 50s, if he was 6 feet tall, his length of the size of his feet, as per the UK standards, should have been around 9 or 10. But because of this constraint shoes that we were providing people with, the size was just around 8 or 7. So you did not have a feet which was to withstand your height. And there was problems of tripping. People were getting into a lot of orthopedic problems, etc., etc. So we started working on biomechanics, and we entered into what we call as the gait analysis, where we started understanding how a person walks. Now, this is where a lot of mathematics came into picture. You understand the pressure points, you understand how, if a person was to carry a bag and walk, how they walk. If they had an injury in their leg, especially when you have diabetes and there is an ulcer in your feet, what do you do? And we worked with the MV diabetics group. We understood the diabetic patients, and we said that, look, you had to be given specialized footwear so that your wounds don't enlarge. So we were able to understand how a personalized footwear should be created. Even today, based on the joint patent with CLRI, MV Diabetes actually provides for this personalized footwear for their patients to reduce the foot ulcers. Now, this was all because we could get into an interdisciplinary mode with people who understood those sizes. Now, taking that forward, what has happened in the last 1.5 years? Yeah, sure. Thank you. What was happening in the last 1.5 years was that we could go around India, cover 73 districts pan-India, collect about 1 lakh plus sizes using the 3-dimensional scanners, and map the feet size of every single Indian. The results is so fascinating that there is a great opportunity to understand the Indian work culture from their feet. Today, we find that a farmer who does not wear a feet at all, in India, his width to the length ratioing is completely different from what we employ in the country. We are today employing a US or UK sizing system. And if he were to suddenly wear a footwear, he cannot wear it. I'm saying the closed footwear, forget about the chappal types, open chappal types. Only 50% of Indian population have comfortable footwear in their hand. We require a sizing system where the width can be accommodated. Today, most of us, what we are doing is that when we cannot accommodate the width of our feet, we are buying one size larger. And in the process, since the length is more, you have free space, and when you walk, you tend to trip and fall down. Based on this data, and when we were analyzing the data, we even found that even with an open footwear where you have this, center stem inside, since it's not made in a standard manner, some Indian people have a gap between their thumb finger and the second finger very large. Same way, the women who wear the ring in their finger, the finger has constrained in one point and then suddenly become bulgy. So those are things which we have now started understanding. We now have a situation wherein if we were to bring in a large quantum of artificial intelligence based studies, because we have the data now, we would actually be in a position to make personalized footwear for every Indian thanks to the developments in 3D printing. The polymer that can be put into the cartridges are today available, and actually speaking, at the cost that we buy a footwear, we can actually make customized footwear for every single Indian if we were to club the artificial intelligence related knowledge that is growing in other fields with the knowledge that we have developed in the institute based on these kind of systems. So friends, what I'm trying to conclude on this is that while we were required up till, I would say, 80s and 90s, the government of India and other agencies started asking, why should CLRI still be relevant? Because industry had grown much better than us. Today, they know how to make better leathers than us. So institute had to reinvent itself. Today, in the last 2 years, we completely changed from our work culture or work methodologies. We shed projects and decided that this institute will now work on 4 areas, which was zero carbon based leathers, which is today we are not at all a carbon footprint friendly organization. We are extremely negative on carbon footprint. We are looking forward to a neutral carbon footprint based industry. We are looking at materials for footwear other than leather. We are looking at them. We also are looking at converting the hides and skins into biomaterials, because that's a field where the lot of tissue engineering, etc., has grown. One of my colleagues is working with Dr. Cherian's group in actually converting goat skin into ocular lenses based models. So if the later date, today these are all basically rat tail and those kind of models, but once the animal models are approved, we would be getting into that. So to conclude, what I would like to say back again is that we require collaborations, extended discussions with almost every branch of science. If the Leather Institute was to stand by itself, we would face a day when we are no longer required. An institution like mine requires constant interactions with all kinds of sciences so that we remain relevant to the society and we are able to contribute better. Thank you for the opportunity given to me.